Good evening and welcome to ET Now Startup Central, India's first and only daily show dedicated to startups, technology and entrepreneurship. I'm Chandra Shrikant coming to you live from India's startup capital, Bengaluru. Of course, we are keeping an eye on the important development coming in from Chennai on Kalainar Karunanidhi's declining health condition. The entire state has been put on a high alert. But while we keep bringing you periodic updates on that, time to really check on what's making news in the startup and entrepreneurship space. And we kick it off then with our top story on Ola making a foray into UK. Now remember, the cab aggregator earlier made a foray into Australia, marking the beginning of its international plans, and it's going to be UK this time around. Now this is an interesting development, considering this comes at a time when it is fighting an intense battle for market share in its home market, India, with Uber. Interestingly, SoftBank is a common investor for both Uber and Ola, so there have been speculations in the last few months on whether there will be a merger between Uber's India operations and Ola, because this is a strategy that Uber has adopted in other markets, other less profitable markets, to focus instead on its key markets in the US and other countries. My colleague Rahul joins me on the show to really talk about what this means. Rahul, interesting development, UK after Australia. Is this some sort of hedge that Ola has come up with, considering it's fighting a very big battle with Uber here? And UK has been a tricky market even for Uber. They were banned in London for a period of time before that was lifted. How is Ola going to cope?
That's right, Chandra. I know it's interesting that they chose UK after Australia. As you rightly pointed out, UK is a challenging market in the sense also because remember, last year the local authorities in London had denied to renew the license of Uber after it clearly indicated that there are concerns that Uber has to fulfill. But it took some time for Uber to really win that battle because London is a massive market. For Ola, while they're really launching in 2 cities by the end of this month, very ambitious target of being present across the United Kingdom by the end of this year. So they've also really spoken about their expansion plan, that by the end of this year they'll be present across the country. So as you rightly mentioned, all eyes on how this really works, because what we are understanding is Ola's strategy has also been to go to international markets, really take on Uber in a big way, to an extent that it would probably have Uber merge its operations here with Ola in India. Because remember, China, Uber has exited Southeast Asia, several markets with the deal that they had with Grab also. So the India is the only market that they have worth fighting for. But remember, that's not the only thing that Ola has on its mind.
Right, Rahul, just a quick follow-up question there. This is also part of a broader trend where we've seen a lot of Indian players tapping international markets. You had Paytm, which launched a center in Canada. There's talk about a possible collaboration in Japan because of its SoftBank connection. InMobi, has made it big in China. You of course had Oyo, which has done very well in China as well. So is this, part of a larger trend where we are seeing Indian startups go international in that sense?
That's right. Interestingly, it's not only Ola that has really ventured into uncharted territories. Even 4-5 years back, for Indian startups to look at developed markets was not something everyone thought was feasible. But as you rightly mentioned, China is a difficult market. InMobi cracked it. They ventured that 2 years back. In fact, Naveen Tiwari, the co-founder CEO of InMobi, told us a few weeks back that the China bet has paid off really well. The business is only growing in in China. OYO today has really informed that they are 50,000 strong network in China alone. Also, Paytm has its data center in Canada. They've made it clear that they're eyeing Japan. You have Practo also that is really present in Southeast Asian countries, in the Latin America, Brazilian market there. So it's interesting because startups have realized that if there's a problem that they're solving in India, it has a similar use case globally. They have to also sell the story in the long term for them to really look at these markets as they expand.
On the line? We also have a guest joining us on the show, to an expert really to give us more perspective. Ujjwal from Redseer Consulting, who tracks the space very closely. Ujjwal, what do you make of Ola's foray into the UK market?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show. So first of all, when we look at any market, so we track, all of the Middle East, Europe and Southeast Asian markets very closely, as well as the Australian market. So whenever we look at any market, we look at it from 2 or 3 lenses. So the first obviously being the demand, second being the supply, third in this particular sector being the drivers, and fourth the regulator. So when we look at the demand, what we see is that it's huge, right? So market, overall taxi market is almost as big as India. So when you look at it from a per capita basis, it's huge. And when you look at London as a market, so just to give you a perspective, New Delhi has the per capita spend on taxi in New Delhi is closer to $20, and London is almost 10 times that on a per capita basis. So when we look at the opportunity, it's really huge. And London is the largest taxi market in Europe, and it also the largest European market for Uber. So definitely a huge opportunity. When we look at it from the driver side, so that is where Ola is going to have to understand it better. And this is where we think that Australia was a test market for them, where they were able to understand how the part-time drivers work. Because when you see India has largely full-time drivers, but these developed markets have a very large share of part-time drivers, where the dynamics are very different. So I think the learning that they have in Australia, they are going to try and bring into the UK market. And definitely they should be able to, give a good competition to Uber there. Then the third is from the competition side, and what we see is that when we look at competition, India remains as one of the few markets where our local player is still giving Uber a lot of competition. Yeah.
Right. Ujjwal, which really brings me to my next question. How successful has Ola been so far in Australia, which has given them the boost to open up in UK as well? UK has been a very tricky market. I mean, Uber has had its share of tiffs with the regulators there. They went through a fairly bad phase under Travis Kalanick, under Dara Khosrowshahi. Of course, some of these differences have been sorted out. Uber is back in the UK. So from that sense, what sort of challenges do you anticipate? And, has Australia worked well for Ola from a market share perspective?
Right. So Australia, Ola is seeing a very good traction, and they are already being counted as. Australia is a fairly competitive market. There are multiple players, and you also have competition from the offline cab players. So, when we speak to the experts within the Australian market, they definitely see Ola as a player which is seeing a good traction initially. Ola has been able to put a differentiated strategy in terms of partners. So they have a different commission structure, which the part-time drivers really like. So Ola, so definitely, good signs in Australia. And as I was mentioning, that London is going to be tricky from the regulations perspective. As you very well said, that Uber has faced issues in London. And the dynamics are very different, right? So, in terms of the safety issues, in terms of licensing issues, these are very different from what we see in the Indian market. So definitely something that Ola will have to work on. But, Australia, since they have been able to do, at least well initially in Australia, we see good times ahead for them in London as well.